I recently released a video about peer support, how offering validation and listening and understanding and empathy are the basis of good organizing, and how the lack of those things is the number one reason that I see organizations fall apart. And in that video, I really wanted to tell a story about the worst organizing meeting I've ever attended, but it just didn't fit, and I didn't want to be overly negative, so we're gonna have a little back of the car story time right now. I want to preface all of this by saying people are flawed, that is okay, organizing is a people project, it is worth doing even though you will encounter some scenarios that make you want to pull out all of your hair and lay down on the floor and go to bed. So, I went to another city, this was many years ago. A bunch of representatives from some related orgs across the United States all flew into one city so that we could be in the same room and crystallize a shared growth strategy. We wanted to have a set of unified principles very, very officious. But I was excited because it was the first time I'd gotten to meet a lot of these people in person. This was an exciting meeting. It was kind of a big moment. It felt like big things were gonna happen. We were all gonna sit down, iron a bunch of things out, and that's not really what happened. Okay, keeping a meeting between 20 equal participants on the rails is hard. No matter what. Especially when you invited everyone there because you value their unique perspectives and you want to get consensus and you want to hear from everyone equally. That's hard. And we did not get off to a good start. Basically, from the jump, one guy was clearly trying to self-appoint as leader. We're going to call him Charlie. It was clear that Charlie was the most... Okay, sometimes it's hard to tell in an organizing space who has the most experience and who simply knows the most vocabulary. And Charlie knew a lot of vocabulary. If you saw me make fun of Robert's Rules of Order in the previous video, it's because of this moment. The very first thing Charlie said to the room was, "So I assume we'll be following Robert's Rules of Order?" Everybody just kind of looked around at each other, and the next person who spoke said, "I think we agreed that we were just going to use progressive stack to keep track of who wants to talk and just go from there." Progressive stack is just a way to keep track of who wants to speak, and it aims to amplify minority or marginalized voices, which can be appreciated for certain spaces where certain people are quite underrepresented. I think there were 3 women in that room out of about 20 people. And for all 3 of us, the progressive stack proposal became very funny retrospectively. But for the rest of the meeting, Charlie played the conversation like he was the sole participant in a game of Uno with Robert's Rules of Order as the cards. He sounded like he was trying to cast magic spells. Every couple minutes you'd hear, "Motion to amend standing rules, motion to amend the amendment, motion to suspend the rules, I withdraw my motion." And everyone in the room would just go, yeah, for sure, definitely. We wanted to be accommodating, we didn't want to argue, this was all of our first time meeting in person, we wanted it to go good, and he was excited about his magic words, and they didn't really seem to mean anything anyway. But also, I think what was happening deeper down is that many of us were embarrassed that we didn't know Robert's Rules of Order. We had no idea what he meant by any of this, and we didn't want to admit that. We didn't want to admit that we didn't know what motion to objection to the consideration of a question meant. We weren't parliamentary wizards in our 7th year of paper shuffling. And I think we all wanted to feel smart and like we were in that room for a reason. So it was kind of hard sometimes to admit what you don't know, especially when it seems like somebody is putting forth their own knowledge as like a status symbol. This became a fog hanging over the entire meeting, where it seemed like people were really, really concerned with demonstrating their credentials to each other. Like that was the vibe immediately, and everyone caught it. You could start to see other people playing into it, using bigger words, dropping more names they know and books they've read and organizations and campaigns that they're familiar with. Credentials are good. Some people have more experience than others, and that's relevant. But once the point of the meeting starts to be proving that to everyone, you've taken your eye off the prize. We did not come here to show off for each other. There were some people walking around and I got self-conscious, so we're gonna do the rest of this in the car. In labor spaces, you'll get a room of people together who have very different levels of experience, and that does not always match one-to-one with who knows the most vocabulary. By all means, teach everyone new useful terms, but try to catch yourself if you find that your motivation is to establish dominance in the room. So, fun start. And then, Charlie contributed something entirely different to the dynamic. Somebody's saying something, and he cuts in to add a clarification, and then he says, "Just so you all know at the outset, I have ADHD, so sometimes I will interrupt. I'm sorry about that." And as a fellow ADHD haver, I totally understand. Wow, Zillennial, YouTuber, worked in tech, has ADHD, crazy. Fucking unprecedented, so brave. But that is to say, I get our tendencies. I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of organizers have ADHD. Sometimes ADHD manifests itself as an insuppressible need to speak on something that you feel very strongly about. And there were 20 of us in that room, we all felt very, very strongly about what we were discussing. So when Charlie said that, I assumed what he meant was, if I interrupt you, let me know, and I will apologize and wait until you are no longer talking, and then I will start talking. No, this was Charlie's way of letting us know that whenever Charlie wanted to say something, Charlie was gonna say something, and you have to deal. The whole meeting, somebody would be saying something, and Charlie would go, "Oh, that's a really good point, and what that makes me think of is..." Oh, sorry, my ADHD. Anyway, what that makes me think of is... Yeah. I think this is where progressive spaces can sometimes get kind of tripped up, because we want to accommodate people, and we want to understand that every human has a different brain, and that we shouldn't hold that against anybody. We shouldn't expect perfection as a condition for engagement. But I think we can do two things. We can recognize that not everyone will always act in the way that we most understand, and we can make space for that. But we can also recognize in ourselves that there may be some known behaviors that we can work to mitigate that make it harder for other people to bring their full selves. It's a hard thing to talk about. It is. And we just didn't really handle it super well, like none of us. So here's what the situation became. We have very quickly moved away from using progressive stack, raise your hand to be added to a list of people who want to discuss, to about 3 guys who've decided it's okay for them to talk whenever they want, and using that privilege primarily to demonstrate all the things that they know. And we were not good at, reining any of this in. Sometimes our stack would just sit on the whiteboard as these 3 dudes just kept bouncing between each other. And I always think of this one woman who was, so polite and so quiet, and she'd be on stack for 15 minutes while these guys just went back and forth. And then she'd get to start talking, and someone would interrupt her, and she'd just sit there looking sad, waiting to see if the talking stick would be passed back to her. But it never was. And I played into it too. I'm not absolving myself, because, if you are capable of playing the interrupting game, sometimes it's just easier to play the interrupting game rather than trying to call somebody out or police the meeting. So this other woman, she didn't want to play the interrupting game. And so she just left. She just walked right out of the room. And 2 of us left the meeting to go and see if she was okay. We found her sitting on the stairs having a good old-fashioned frustration cry. She had been so excited to meet some of her collaborators, and this was not what she expected. She thought that she would be respected by her fellow organizers. Most of the people in this meeting were respectful, but I also don't remember most of them, because we did not do a good job of hearing from everyone. We did a terrible job of reining in that small group of people who were not being super respectful. We were all way too intimidated to go against the people who seemed to be indicating that they had more of a right to speak than anyone else, especially because they kind of were signaling through their language that they had expertise. I think I genuinely did believe that Charlie had the right to interrupt me sometimes because big words. He didn't know better than us. He was just loud. After a chaotic morning, I proposed one rule during lunch that I hoped would get the interrupting a bit more under control. The rule was small. It was humble. If someone was speaking and they were asked to clarify a term or acronym or concept, the person who was originally speaking would be the one to clarify. We would keep having someone interrupt politely to ask, "I'm so sorry, I don't know that acronym, what does that mean?" And then a different person from the one who was originally talking, but who wanted to establish that they also knew what that acronym meant. They would jump in to clarify, and then they would just keep talking. So the person who was originally speaking would lose the floor. It happened so many times. And so as I'm proposing this rule, of course everyone's going, "Oh yeah, yes, good, yes, that's good." And then this was like a joke. I used some acronym or term while talking, and a person gently said, "Sorry, what did that thing that you just said, what did that mean?" And the person next to me goes, "Oh, it means this. Anyway, I think blah, blah." He just starts talking. And I stood out of my chair, just reflexively, and I pointed at him, and I shouted, "No!" Like I was scolding a dog. I still feel kind of bad about it. It rose out of me. I couldn't believe it literally happened as I was pointing out the problem. We did not accomplish very much at that meeting, but I learned a lot. What we should have done is, we appointed somebody to take notes, we appointed somebody to keep time, we appointed someone to keep the stack. We had somebody standing at the whiteboard writing down whose hands were raised. We probably should have bestowed upon them the power and responsibility to enforce the stack. But like I said, I think we were a little bit more preoccupied with politeness, this version of politeness where we don't kind of point at people and go "Hey, you're doing this thing," than we were with accommodating everyone. Isn't that weird? Accommodating people feels like what you're doing in either circumstance. You're either accommodating a person who is behaving kind of not super pro-socially, or you're accommodating somebody who is getting talked over. As for the ADHD thing, that's a thing I feel conflicted talking about because I don't want to further stigmatize neurodivergent people. The problem is not that this person had ADHD. The problem was that he would actually recognize that he was engaging in this behavior that made it difficult for other people in the room to participate. And rather than trying to, look at himself and go, is this something that I can improve upon in myself? He would just say out loud, "Here is the reason that I do not need to accommodate you." Yeah. I have facilitated meetings since where people have interrupted each other and where I have kind of gently said either to somebody privately or to the room, "Hey, I know that we're all really excited. Let's all try to be super conscientious of when somebody has the floor." It can be awkward because you don't want to make somebody feel bad. And so I think it is nice to kind of soften it a little bit. "Hey, I'm excited too. Sorry, I've noticed myself do this a few times. You can take some of the blame too, Since then, anytime I'm facilitating a meeting, I try to bring up the concept of make space, take space, which I really like. I forget who first introduced me to that, but thank you, whoever you are. I'm a space taker in meetings. I like to talk. You know this. I don't need to tell you this. I like to talk. I like to give people my opinions. And so I will try to say at the beginning of every meeting, "Hey, a lot of us really like to contribute. We feel really confident and comfortable jumping right in. That's wonderful. We want to hear from everybody. Try to check in with yourself and ask, am I making space for other people, especially if it's a big room. And then I'll also say, to the people who are maybe a little bit more nervous to offer their opinion, they're maybe a little more nervous to jump in, please feel confident taking space in this room because we want to hear from you. And so if I've established that, I can kind of remind people periodically, like, hey, I just wanted to call back to our principle, make space, take space. Let's take a moment to check in with ourselves. Could I be making a little bit more space? Could I be taking a little bit more space if I've been too nervous to speak up? So sometimes that has been helpful, but it's hard. Facilitating meetings is hard. Being in meetings is hard. We all hate meetings, right? It's actually a good thing I got into the car because it is raining now. So, I don't know. Yeah, sorry to basically make an anonymous drama video. Hopefully this will help all of us learn how to conduct better meetings. I still believe in organizing, obviously, but I don't think we'll get anywhere by pretending that we don't fuck up sometimes or have areas for improvement. We can admit that. It's okay. So, anyway, thanks for listening. Bye.